exciting.
This
Okay.
class has been very
Here's the
helpful for me because
There's probably some stuff in this house that needs
Where were
fixing.
you an agent
Okay?
before?
with Jeff Griffin.
Oh,
in
yeah.
Guadalupe.
Yeah, he's a
We're
wonderful,
gonna find
I
out what the
love Jeff.
inspection
He's a
looks
very
like.
busy
But he
guy.
doesn't
Just
have
between
time
me
to
and
teach you
the
things.
inspector is
Oh,
to find out
he's
everything
he's
wrong.
a dear friend.
I
If they
know,
don't find
you say
anything
hello
wrong,
from
they're
the
gonna
island,
be
he knows I
upset.
love him.
Absolutely.
So they're gonna say that the
He's
people
a
in
dear,
that
dear
plate
friend,
is
and
not turned up
he
and down,
helped
it's
me
turned
as best
side
as
to
he
side.
can, gave me
It's
open
serious.
houses and
There's some
everything,
guys.
but
And you probably still
You're
give
gonna
the
get
open
less than
houses.
15.
he absolutely,
Of the
he
15.
texts
Take advantage
me,
of it.
he texts
14 of
me
them,
every
13
day.
of
All
them are
right,
stupid.
try the second one.
Some are gonna be, you know,
In this buyer,
You wanna get them
there are
fixed.
three
You know,
ways that we
there's
can
three ways to
handle
handle
the
it.
transaction.
You can either make a
Number
low
one,
offer.
You can make a low offer, you run the risk of the seller rejecting it or countering back at
Or
full price to
you
compensate.
could
You
ask
can make
for
an offer closer to the asking
some
price,
kind of money
be less
compensation.
flexible if there's a counter offer back.
The seller,
Or if you really want this one, they're concerned that another buyer may
take the
purchase
property
it,
as it is.
you can make a full price offer and give the seller what they want. It's your choice.
The low
How
offer.
would you like
I'd
me
like
to
to, well, wait,
negotiate
the
this
problem
offer?
is we're making this offer.
So
before
you're
we get
probably
the
already
inspection.
talking
Right,
this, but
but
anyway.
here's the problem.
Well, you know, it's kind of like we were
If you
saying
make-
before, I
if you
don't
make a low
wanna,
offer, you run the
like,
risk of pissing off the seller.
we think this is a pretty well-priced house, but you know, it's at 520.
Or
If
higher
you
than
start
that,
at
they're getting
505, which
98%.
would be terrible, I mean, that's a
So
little over
there's-
5,
yeah,
right?
if you come in with a low
I'm just
offer,
saying,
you're
so
dead.
give me a little off.
So
You're dead.
Well, it is a seller's market
I think
right
the-
now, as
I
far
think
as
the
I've been
inspection
able to just
still
give
have the right to
CMAs.
reject the
Right, no
property
facts.
based on the inspection,
You're on
and based on the
Maui,
inspection,
Google
then
Feed.
Now, just
and you send a
remember,
note to him saying,
you've asked the question, how many showings are you
"It's only
having?
asking for 2 of them." And you
okay.
put it that way. so
Right,
they
you've
can
asked
say,
that question, you
Right.
know how popular this unit is.
This is a popular
Yeah,
unit.
we have
It's
lift
a
off.
seller's market. I've talked to the other
But that's
agents.
actually,
You do run the
that's
risk
what
of
happens.
losing it, and you said this is where you would like.
Okay,
Make the
so
offer.
if the more you
Get
get
the
the
house.
facts and say the other agent had 3
Then-
showings
then we
and
can
then
do
they've got
Yeah,
4 more
exactly.
set
And
up
then we
already,
go, then we
or
don't
2 more
negotiate
set
the
up
inspection
already.
shit.
How does that make you feel about the offer?
I just,
Yes, as opposed to it's you saying it.
Yeah.
So that's a great conclusion.
Okay, leverage.
Hi, everybody, how'd you do?
Get the deal accepted, get it accepted.
So there's 2 things I want to point out that we've learned in our conversation here, and I'm going to go backwards from the second script. In the second script, when you're trying to convince somebody to give a full price offer, the more you can give facts as opposed to it's your advice,
Right,
right? There's this maxim that says it matters who says it. It matters who says it. If it's not you saying it, it'll have more clout. So if you can say, well, you know, I spoke to the agent and the agent had 2 showings yesterday and they've got another 2 lined up tomorrow. How does that make you feel about your lowball offer? Oh, oh, you mean somebody, I said, there's a lot of interest on this property. He hasn't received another offer yet. I'm just letting you know, he's got people calling him to see it. So do you think this is appropriate to make a lowball offer? Do you see how that's stronger than just the verbiage, right? If you can present, so asking that question is so valuable. If you've got the information, he showed it to us yesterday, he hasn't got another appointment set. Yeah, all right, I'll go with you. Maybe this is overpriced, let's give it a try here, right? There's more time to do this, and then you keep in touch with them and find out, have you got any other showings, what's the activity, while your offer is being considered. Hi, how's it going? You got any showings? Right? So staying in touch. So that was the one. On the other, on the repair conversation, here's the thing. In this market, we've got so many sellers not willing to do repairs that it would be my recommendation that if there is a repair that you know of up front, that you nail it down because your buyer really wants that repaired. So if that garage door is wobbly and the seller is not offering up front to fix it, and your client is like, that garage door has got to go, put it in queue and say seller agrees to repair or replace whatever it is you want, the garage door 10 days prior to closing at seller's expense. And that's in, right? And you can even say, we increased our offer by $1,000 to compensate for this repair. So you make it a $506,000 offer as opposed to a $505,000 offer, right? You could do that. But that way you've got this concern that your buyer has, they come out of looking at that, love that property, but that garage door, you know, this becomes a big thing to them. So I would rather nail it down than wait for the inspection and then have the seller say, I'm not doing that. Now guess who's gonna pay for the garage door? I am. I don't wanna do that. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because I didn't take care of it up front, right? So if the seller comes back to that offer with the garage door phrase in it and says,
And you're saying
delete
that
the,
because you want the deal to go through?
that I would pay for it?
Yeah.
Frickin' yeah,
Yeah. I
excuse
mean, when
me.
you said I am, you were speaking as the agent
I
who
am
just
the
doesn't want
agent.
the whole deal to
I don't want I'd rather get $1,000 less than get nothing, and I also wanna see my client in the house. Right? So it obviously depends whether I'm willing to spend that much based on, I might say to the client, look, I'm gonna give you a $500 credit and I'll split the garage door with you. I'm sorry that didn't come through. You know, something like that. Depends on the size of the commission I'm gonna get as to how much. But I've got a general rule that says $500 is yours. $500, I'm spending it. No questions asked, I'm spending it. It is the best marketing money I ever spend is to make my clients happy. If I can be the one that solves it in the end, that hires the handyman, that brings in another cleaner, that does whatever, I'm the hero.
Yeah, you
And
got
guess
the
what
red
they're
S on
gonna
your
do? They're
chest.
gonna talk about me
Yep.
and what a great realtor they have.
Yep.
So that's, can't buy that kind of stuff, so it's worth it.
We had a termite issue, which was quite expensive, and me and the other agent both ate it, but it was a big deal. I mean,
It was a big deal, so it was worth it,
multi-million-dollar
yes, it's
deal,
worth
so.
it, absolutely, so, yeah, keep that in mind. All right, cool, nice exercise. Now we're going on to page 18. Present the offer to the listing agent, there you go. So here again, we do things somewhat differently than is discussed here. We do call the listing agent, or as Bob says, at least text them, right?
Yep.
Using e-edge, invite the listing agent into, no, don't do
No.
that. So, you're just going to forward the contract via email to the listing
So
agent.
don't do the using e-edge.
No.
No, take that out, take that out. You're gonna request a reply within the shortest amount of time your market will allow. And for us, 2 days is pretty normal. So, what did you say?
I would always call the listing agent
Yeah.
and say, how much time do you need?
Yeah,
Well, my seller's in Japan. Well, guess what? Then you're gonna need it
Yeah.
a week. Yeah.
we've gone through that, barring the answer you got from the listing agent.
Right.
But normally 2 days. If the seller's on island, okay, great, fine, 2 days.
On island, yeah, absolutely. Mainland, a little bit more time, but not much.
Mainland maybe, but not much, and
Not
email
much.
is instant, right? Yeah. If the seller counters, consult with your buyer to either accept the counter offer or re-counter the offer, right? So here's the script. Who wants to read the script?
I can.
Okay, good.
Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, by countering the seller. has
By
essen-
countering?
By countering the seller, by countering, the seller has essentially sold you the home for $200,000. If we counter at $195, it shows the seller to walk away from you or accept another offer in the interim. It is the risk of selling away your dream home for only $5,000. Are you okay with that risk?
So do you understand that? Right? If there's not a signature on a contract, there's no contract. So if somebody counters, right, and you put a signature to it, it's a deal. If you now choose to counter, there's another 24 or 48 hours that the house is on the market or the unit is on the market and could be bought by somebody else. So again, I might call the listing agent and say, so how many showings have you had? Right? What's the activity? Are there other people looking at it? And now I can go to my client and say, he hasn't had any other showings and he's got no requests. So I think you've got room if you wanted to counter. And if he's got lots of showings and activity, I'm gonna go, really? Do you wanna risk this for $5,000? Now, here's a handy thing to know is what does $5,000 cost a month? Right?
Darn
If
it.
$25.
Really?
Right now, it costs about $500 a month to borrow $100,000. Actually, today it's probably less than that, more like $450. So if it costs $450 to borrow $100,000, it would cost $45 a month to borrow $10,000, right? Cut that in half. Now it's $22.50. That's what we're talking about here, is $22.50 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, so, well, the first time you said $5,000 was 25?
Yeah. So
What's the
you're-
total? I'm just trying to
work
get
it
the
down.
numbers.
It is very, very handy to always know how much it costs to borrow $100,000.
Yeah,
At 4.5% to 5, somewhere in there, it's around $500. You've probably got a little taxes in there, whatever else. There's a little wiggle room, but it's around $500 a month.
okay, so if somebody's bickering over, say,
$5,000. That's what this scenario says.
that's $25 a month.
Yeah, so do the math. And the easy way to do the math is take the $100,000, take off a zero, that's $10,000. If it costs $500 to borrow $100,000, it costs $50 to borrow the $10,000, right? $50 a month of your mortgage payment covers $10,000. So then you cut that in half again, because we're talking about a $5,000 price difference here. We got countered for $5,000, right? That would cost half of the $50, or $25.
A month.
A month.
Or 82 cents a day.
So when you break it down like that, you say to somebody, this is $22 a month, they go, what? Because that's what we're talking about here. If this is in your loan, this is $22 a month.
5,000 is 20.
$5,000, yeah. So you get that, you'll get this, but it's very handy. If you can work with math like that, it's not complicated, but just knowing the price of a $100,000 mortgage
Mhm.
per month is a very handy thing to know. Yeah. And you can just go into Paragon and in financials. Some of you hopefully be in my Paragon class in a couple of weeks. There's a financials button, and you go to that mortgage calculator, and it'll tell you what's it cost to borrow $100,000 at 3.65%, which is the current rate, right? Okay. We're going on to representing the seller. When a buyer makes an offer on your client's property, there's no clock in here. Ooh, there's the clock. How about we take a 5-minute break?
Okay.
And you can just nod along them and stand up,
Stretch.
stretch, walk around, go to the restroom.
Hello. I have a 5-minute break. Okay, I think that's what I was talking about.
Did we get your numbers here?
Mm-hmm.
You did?
Yep.
For, not just for your homework, but for the classwork? Cause you were out, weren't you out in the balcony?
Oh, no, I didn't put, you're right, not the homework. 2 calls,
2 calls,
1 conversation.
appointment?
Nope.
Okay. We've got people MIA. There we go. Okay. We're gonna breeze through this so that you can have time to do these role plays, because they're a lot of fun. So I'm just gonna zip through us here. Representing the seller, oh, okay, yeah. Receiving the offer, gathering information about the buyer, present the offer to your client, and respond to the offer. Here again, it's really helpful to do mock offers to your sellers, so that you can, they have a grasp of what they can expect from the purchase contract, right? And what's in there, and that way you don't have to do it at this moment, and help them understand what are these elements that are being, what are the pieces that are the variables in the contract. It says here, first thank your buyer's agent for the offer. If you know or even think there may be other offers coming, tell the buyer's agent at this time. That is the kind and courteous thing to do. By the way, I'm expecting another offer, okay? Or, as usually happens, is you call and say, have you got any other offers? No, I don't. And then you send the offer and they say, I just got another offer. It happens, right? So things change, absolutely. Find out. Review the offer for accuracy and completeness using the checklist on the following page. So, how long has the buyer been looking? In other words, find out as much information as you can about the buyer. This is good stuff. How long has the buyer been looking? Why is that important?
Know their urgency, their situation.
Well, how long has the buyer been looking? And I say, about 6 months.
They seem to be easygoing about it, at least they're not in a hurry.
Right, what else do you learn from that? They haven't ever found
found anything, right? The next question is, have they made any offers? No, they haven't made any offers. This is the first offer they're making. Oh, what made them decide to put an offer in on this house? They really like it. This house has a lot of the elements that they're looking for. Now what does it tell you? Are they urgent? Is it urgency?
It's more urgent now because they like this one.
Right, it's actually, I like it, I'm bought in, they want it. They want it, right? So the desire is there. That's really a cool thing to find out. So how long have they been looking? If somebody says, oh, we just started. This was actually the first time I'd taken them out. So they've looked at your property and 4 others that afternoon. Now what do you think? Okay, right? And then you could ask more questions. Have they been pre-approved by a lender? Well, you would know that from the, whether you got one with the offer. And most offers these days do have pre-approval letters attached. So if they don't, if you didn't get them, then you would ask that question, right? Do they have anything to sell? If they did, that would be a contingency. So I don't think that question really pertains to us. They're not making it a contingency. I don't know, Bob. Could you just sell that? Ask that question.
You know, the seller,
you're going to put a contingency in a contract.
you're gonna put it in the contract anyway.
Yeah. So if the money for this transaction is contingent on the sale of something, that's going to be in the contract, in the offer. Okay.
Yep.
If they're from out of town, why are they moving to this area? Oh gosh, I can't even imagine why. So, funny question, right? But how well do they know Maui?
There's.
How often have they been here? Oh, they're just at the end of their first vacation. Uh-oh, what's gonna happen with a buyer who's going home tomorrow and is making an offer today that has been here for the first time?
They're gonna sober up.
It's called cold feet. They're going to get cold feet. So, we need to know that. Why did they select this particular property? In other words, what is it about this property that was so important to them, right? They chose this one. And have they made offers on any other properties? If so, what happened on those negotiations, right? So, that is a very thorough list of what to ask a buyer's agent. And I would dare say most listing agents don't do this thoroughly. So this is a really good guide. This is like, so if you've noticed, real estate works on lists, right? You're all aware that a pilot can't take off on the plane without doing check, check, check. They have a co-pilot going check, 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 right? They have a checklist. Surgeons now have a checklist, right? You all know this. Infections in hospitals went down like by 40% because they gave surgeons a checklist before closing people up. Like, who would have thought that would take a checklist? But it's got do this, how you do, right? And so it really helps. So if surgeons and pilots need checklists, guess what we need?
Checklist.
Yes, and you are only as good as your checklist. And I'm telling you, this is a really good checklist. So what you need to do is write in your notes somewhere and say, go to chapter 9, section, page 20, whatever it is, and make that one of my lists. And you need a place in your file system where you, oh wow, that went far. You need a place in your file system where you are going to keep your lists so that you can easily access them. And we sometimes have list conversations in our Monday morning Zoom group coaching calls. So we'll be able to support you with that. But I just want to point out that there's a lot of good checklists here. You've got the makings of all the checklists you need, and then you get to customize them. Say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And then you can now deliver consistent service. And that's the hard part. We do a good job for this person, but not such a good job for this person because we forgot 4 things. If you go by a checklist, you can improve that. So keep this note, page 19, it's a great checklist. All right, checklist for reviewing an offer. Well, is the address correct? Is the checks what the price is? What's the earnest money? Fortunately, we know that Zip Forms does the math for us. So we know that the math is right, because Zip Forms does that for us, right? What's the time you have for your seller to accept this offer or counteroffer to respond? Check the pre-approval letter. Loan approval, what are the dates? Financing terms, check that. If it's a FHA loan or a VA loan, is there a VA or FHA addendum, because you're gonna need those. Closing date, does the closing date work for your seller? Home warranty, again, we're not going there. Conveyances, are all the things checked that should be checked? So, you get an offer, everything's perfect about the offer, your seller likes everything except they forgot to check the washer dryer. It's not checked. Would you counter on a washer dryer?
Less than 500.
No, meaning the chances are the buyer's agent simply forgot, made a mistake, and forgot to check the little boxes in the thing that says include the washer dryer. The seller's saying, I wanna leave you the washer dryer, but it doesn't say that here.
I don't know, you would have to do, I don't think you'd have to do a whole counter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You
that's-
don't wanna counter for minor things like that, right? So you're gonna call the listing agent and say, hey, listen, we wanna accept your offer, but you forgot the washer dryer. And you go, oh, the buyer's agent goes, what? I forgot oh my God, I'm so sorry. Don't worry about it. You and I'll fix it in escrow, okay? We're gonna write a little addendum and get them to amendment and get them to sign that. But there's no need to counter here for a little thing like that, yeah. Okay. So that's conveyances, repairs, we've talked about that, right? Are there repairs being requested? Oh yeah, they want the garage door fixed, okay, fine. So you wanna point that out to the seller. And are there any other special clauses or contingencies? No, nothing other than the garage door, because we don't really do that. HOA, seller's disclosure and mold disclosure, make sure the seller has completed these documents. So what they're really saying is the HOA documents are to be obtained from a service. So you go to, it's called DocuTreeve or DocuServe, and they will provide you with the most current version of the homeowners association documents as the listing agent. So that's not something that you get from the seller. And some sellers come to you and say, oh, I've got all those documents, don't worry, you can use mine. Don't do that, because you have no way of knowing that your seller actually has up-to-date documents. So you need to convince your seller that no, they need to pay the $350, whatever it is, to get up-to-date documents. It's just, you don't wanna take that on, Mr. Seller, to, let's make sure we get everything that is totally accurate. Seller's disclosure, any mold disclosure obviously would be part of that. Yes, we have mold in this corner. Talk about a red flag, right? Mold is a big red flag, so my advice to that seller would be, let's fix that, and then disclose that we fixed it.
Don't you clean it.
Oh my God. Well, chances are you can't, it's in the walls, right, or something, yeah.
Don't even try.
So possession date, right, is closing date acceptable? And then presenting the offer to the client. First, call the client and let them know you've received an offer to present them. And you let them know the offer price in the closing. That's what they're gonna wanna know. What are the key things they wanna know? How much? How much? So you tell them how much. And you say, but you know, there's a whole bunch of other stuff about this offer and it's worth considering. Can we have an appointment? I will send it to you. Let's say this is an out-of-town client. Can we have an appointment? I'm available at 3 this afternoon. That's 5 o'clock your time. Could we go through it? And I'll be happy to answer any questions. Yeah, okay, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, my time works for me. And then you send it to them and they have a chance to look at it and think about it. And that's what's nice about this. They have a moment to breathe and think, as opposed to getting them to have to make a response right on the spot, right? So that's the value here. And then it says, if possible, present the offer to your client in person. Exactly what I'm saying. Bring your laptop or tablet with you when you meet. If the seller is out of the area, you can still present the offer using, well, like I just said, you just do it a PDF. You send them a PDF and they can look at it. If I'm meeting my client in person, I'm gonna print it out. Yep. So keep the tone of the conversation as positive as possible at all times. Never criticize the buyer or the agent or the offer. Now here's a place where if you've prepared your seller that, you know, we may get lowball offers. And I just want to be clear here that some people just think it's a way to start a negotiation. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with our property here. It has everything to do with, that's just what they got, their mother taught them that. You know, you should always lowball to start with. So don't take effect. We can decide how we want to respond, okay? So if you warn them about that, when you take the listing, then when it happens, they go, oh, here's one of those lowball offers you told me about. Yep, that's what we got here. So, but let's take a look at the rest of the offer, because there might be something here that's definitely worthwhile negotiating, okay? So, let's say everything else in the offer is perfect. They gave us 90 days to close, whatever the thing is, right? I go, really, let's negotiate this.
Don't get offended.
Yeah, don't get offended. So people love to, like, initially, rah, rah, rah. So when we give them a little time to calm down, and that's our job, right? That's our job. Okay, so reaching a decision, you have 3 choices. Here we go again, the choices. You can accept the offer, counter the offer, or reject the offer, right? All right. So now we've got some opportunity here for some more role play, and there's a little more time here. So I'm just gonna review these scripts with you, and then you can pair up again and take turns doing this. And remember, this is a dialogue, so you ask questions. You pretend to be the buyer or the seller here, and you just go, well, no, I don't want that. What do you think? And then we learn that way to, how would I respond to that question, right? Yeah. All right. Good morning, afternoon. It's Marion at Keller Williams. We've got an offer for your review. I'm going to go through the offer with you. Is this a good time? Okay, great. So the offer they came in with is $450,000. They're putting $10,000 as earnest money down. That's a light percent. And they're putting a 25% total down payment. They want to close on February 28th, and they're asking for about $1,000 in repairs. What do you think? Okay, so let's assume you're sitting with your client, or you've sent them the contract and you've given them some time to review it, and you're actually having this conversation, either in person or over the phone. But they've had a little time, they've already heard the price, right? You're just repeating it. So, now that's lower than your asking price, but it's an offer, so we need to decide what you'd like to do. Right? You can literally say that. If this is a low ball offer, I know this is lower than your asking price, but we still need to talk about this and decide what to do. It's a good line. I will urge you to consider this offer very carefully and consider the value of meeting your moving goals. In the long run, meeting your overall goal of selling your home is the more crucial one. Wouldn't you agree? Your property has been on the market now for 57 days, and the average time on market for this area is 45. Now, here's the difference. Our days on market in the MLS go from day listed until closing. So you'll see our days on market are about 100. So what you're looking for is, and you have to calculate this on your own, what are the recent sales? You pull the contract date.
Yep.
You pull this into Excel, and you put the contract date column next to the closing date column, and you can write a little formula that says, tell me the number of days from one to the other. And you can now see, on average, oh, things are going into escrow in 45 days. See what the difference is? You can't get that out of our MLS. I don't know why. It's not acceptable to me, but it is the way it is. So now my conversation with them, you've been on market for 57 days. The average number of days people are taking to get into escrow is 45. So we're already over what's going on, which means other people are, buyers are passing us up, right? There's other things going into escrow. not us. So that's important for our client to know. Buyers are going to look at the same data, they're going to see that your neighbor's house sold for only blank, and the house around the corner sold for blank. They're gonna wanna pay for market value compared to these other sales. Well, that goes back to what was your CMA conversation? You probably warned them, these are your good comps, and you're trying to price it over here. Or, this doesn't apply, right? In other words, your CMA conversation with the seller has already addressed what their comps are, and you should have a realistic price. If they overprice the house, then this isn't really a lowball offer. This is actually spot on. See where I'm going? Yeah?
Question, is it common for agents to go back and forth with comps? So, for example, we're offering 20 under list, but I'd like to show you some comps that I did that my client and I went over that show that we feel that it's a little over market value, and that's why we're making this offer. And then the selling agent, or the listing agent rather, would say, oh, well, okay, but here's some comps that I did that show. Is that common or no?
It's not common, but it's definitely a great technique, and yes, it does happen. It makes a lot of sense, right? Because now we're talking about, these are the comps I used, and the listing agent says, these are the comps that I used. And you can now argue about, well, that comp doesn't really apply because of blah, blah, blah. And so you can go back and forth. And now what you're giving is, let's say the buyer's agent is convincing me, and I don't have great answers because I did use comps that made it look awfully good. Now I've got ammunition to go back to the seller and say, well, here's the comps that they're using, and if you recall, I told you that these were really good comps for you. That the comps we used were actually stretching our price, right? So this takes you back to, when you do your pricing with your seller, be honest, right? If you overprice properties just to get a listing and just to make a seller happy, it could bite you, right? So in order not to go there, it helps to have your original CMA and say, if you recall, we talked about these were actually your good comps and you wanted to go with these. And now the buyer is coming back and saying, these are the comps. So what would you like to do with that? Yeah, but, well, it's not really true, is it? So oftentimes you can do that, and oftentimes you can't. It isn't that easy. But yes, using comps to go back and forth, definitely.
I mean, on the other hand, the only thing, like I did that recently and this listing agent didn't seem very interested in my comps. The only thing that I hadn't accounted for was when you do your comps, you can only look at solds, and if it's like a month later, there's usually a little increase in, at least lately there has been in prices.
Prices are going up.
Yeah, that was the only thing I hadn't accounted for.
The other challenge is so many things aren't really comparable, right? It's such an art, not a science. It's so challenging. I mean, if you're comparing Kihei Village to Kihei Village, okay.
Yeah.
But houses, this becomes challenging. So yeah. But yeah, it's totally legitimate to try and do that. And yes, some people can just blow you off and say, I don't really care what the comps say. This is what the seller wants. You want the house? So yeah, we do what we can. What's the third script? The third script is recommend that your client make a counteroffer. We look at any offer as a positive thing initially. We always recommend a counteroffer instead of rejecting an offer.
Yep.
It may be that we can negotiate this up to where we need to be. Let's put together a solid counteroffer. Well, if your client is dead set on selling it list price, that's not gonna work, right? But then you need to go back to the buyer and say, seller's non-negotiable on the list price, non-negotiable. So that's just what we have to present. But if there's room, this is the right approach. I think the thing to focus on here is the price you want to get for your house. Putting this offer aside, if you could get this home sold and closed in 30 days, what would you feel comfortable selling it for today? Let's put together, right? Ask that question. Well, I've been on market for 57 days and I'm kind of over it, because it wears them down, right? Especially if they're in the house, or if they've been getting emails, no showings, no showings, no showings, no showings. Or no offers. So you get the idea here. Yeah, okay, pair up, you've got 15 minutes for this one, so really get into it with each other about negotiating with your listing agent about how you wanna proceed based on this offer, and you can just agree to some numbers to start with. You guys wanna go again? Wanna stay in the same pairs?
I'm gonna be the seller, and you're gonna be the,
Good morning.
okay?
Alright.
So you are presenting an initial offer to me.
This
Oh,
is
do
Do
Mark.
you wanna agree to price, so you don't have to make it up in the top?
Decide on.
Alright, now the offer that came in.
What do you wanna, what are we selling here?
For the actual.
Yeah.
28,000 condo here.
You're selling.
Okay, 428, a res condo, I mean,
Okay.
a non-vacation rental.
Yeah.
As a total down payment.
25 off.
Okay.
I think
Good
Mark closed
afternoon,
Yeah.
it's Marcus Springs with Keller Williams
January
Realty,
Where?
how are you?
Good.
Did you
We
know
have an
where?
offer here for your
Does it
review.
matter?
Ooh,
Where it is?
I'm gonna go through the offer with
what's
you, is this a good time?
Yes, it is.
So, where would that stay?
Let's say it's a one-bedroom condo leasing. That's
The
about the
offer they
right.
came in with is
Okay.
Okay, so.
$128,000.
Hey Bob, good
They're
morning, good to see
putting
you.
$10,000
We
There?
We got an offer.
and
Oh, wonderful.
30,
I knew you could do it.
3%
And
is the total down
just,
payment.
just got it, I wanted you to review it.
Yeah,
3% down
We
Oh,
payment.
got it, yeah.
payment.
Okay.
Is this?
They want to close on.
I will
Okay.
touch base with their.
So the
see
offer
what
getting
the
a
exact
little low.
repairs are in
They're
there.
asking
$545.
But I do know that now it's a lot lower than their asking price.
Let me write all this
And
down.
they
That's
are
what
putting
what I was trying to say.
$5,000
Don't
on
fair
their
limits. Like I said, we don't do that.
And then they give another
I would cross that
$5,000,
out.
So we need to
after,
decide what you would like
2
to
days
do.
after June 1.
The only time that
So I'm
you can
gonna
say is they attach an asset addendum, but there's a limit to $1,000
Okay.
they'll pay.
In the long run, their overall goal
They
is
want
They
to
attached
close
an asset
in
addendum,
45
but they
days.
put a
Is it
limit
more
of
for
$1,000
it's
for
not
what they'll
accounted,
repair.
your
Okay,
plan
that's
is
what,
market
that's
now
what you were
for-
talking
That's
about.
how we
is-
do it.
You were
That's
with that,
the market in the
That's how we do
area.
35 limits.
okay.
You
that's
don't
what-
They
buyer-
are not asking
A
for
buyer
any,
is going to look at the
repairs
state
at
data.
the moment.
They're going to
So
see
it's
that your neighbor
$428,000.
house
Okay, at the
sold
moment.
for only
Well, you know, the seller's
490,000,
disclosure, we
and the
did,
house
Yeah,
around
yeah,
the
yeah.
corner
There were a
sold
few
for
things, there was like
400,000.
some
They're going to
cabinetry,
want to
was a
be
little
fair market value
not,
compared to these
you know,
other
perfect,
sales.
and
If you
when they do the
accept this
inspection,
offer
they
and
might
probably
find
have
something,
leave off
you
the
know,
ability
like
of
there could
closing
be,
on
you
your
know,
buyer
electrical,
100%,
you know,
you wanna meet your
Okay.
goals.
So what's our
things like that,
Now, the
can
offer they
All
came
right.
in.
turn
Hold on.
into
What's our
requests
asking
for
So,
fixes
Our
or
asking
repairs.
price is.
Okay, so we look at
As
how
is,
many offers, there's one good
435.
thing.
in their
Initially, we always
offer.
recommend the counteroffer
We
instead of
can
rejecting
cross
it.
that bridge when we get there.
Maybe, that.
So this is
goes
not
to
a law.
what do you
to
think?
where we need it to be. Let's put
Right.
together a
So
solid counteroffer.
maybe I should
We need to
say,
get it back.
In the
to
real
where
world,
it's
Make it
moving
no.
slowly.
If
Would
you come to
428 be
me
a
and I
low
was selling
offer
for
on a
$550 and you
448
came with me at $5 for it,
Oh,
I'd
okay.
take that
No,
deal all day long.
That's only a $12,000
Fine,
$22,000
yes, go.
difference.
Wait, wait, so
There it
this
is.
is helpful.
Make it
So you're saying
460.
if
And
what
now
just
your
happened was
428
real,
is
What was happening was
$32,000.
just real,
and you were the seller,
and I was selling for $550 and you came to me with an offer for $5.25, I'd take that deal every day. Because I mean, come on,
really learning.
here's what Bob sells on.
Okay.
You know,
Here's
Right,
a
but
pile of
you've been
cash
in
on the
business
kitchen
here for 2
table.
years. And how do you
$525,000.
sell your market?
Here's a piece of paper. If you
Do
sign that
this
sheet of
without
paper,
knowing your
you
market.
take that.
All right,
That's what I'm
Great,
here for.
great learning.
If you don't sign the sheet of paper, you're buying it back for $25,000.
They offered you 500,000.
Really? We
Okay.
haven't had an
All
offer,
right,
we've had
that
this
seems
property on
kinda
the market
low.
for 75 days. We
Yeah,
haven't had an offer, now we got an offer, which is really close to the asking price. Sign this,
Yeah,
sign this
I
paper.
Got this.
Okay.
Now, what
So
about, like,
that's
would
correct.
it be my
That's lower
obligation
than your asking
to
price.
present to you also
But
to
it is
say,
an offer,
just
so
so
you
you know,
decide what you
I
want
just-
to
just
do.
to
right now are pretty high in terms of most economies are
Well,
going for, you know, list price, or I mean, would that be stupid? I mean.
No, you already
Well, I
presented
don't
me
wanna
your
sell
CMA,
428.
that most
So,
condos
you know,
are
we're
selling
listed
for
at
one bedroom,
460,
two bath
and then
condos,
also,
condo
you
stands
know,
are selling
they're-
between
I don't know,
545 and
I don't know,
565. So we priced it at
I thought you
550.
said that our 460 is
So
actually
this
very
would be,
high.
so
To understand where they're
Yeah,
getting that
I
money,
mean,
what
I
they
wanna
need
get
to
out of my
do
life.
to negotiate
Consider
something else.
the value of meeting your.
Not
I mean,
necessarily to.
that's what I
Meeting your overall goals.
Yes, that's what I've done.
Is that,
More
but is that
critical need.
common?
Sure.
You need to be out by March
Sure.
30th.
Or is it more common that they're
I
like?
guess because if you count
Okay.
it back,
Yeah.
Up to 540.
you
Okay.
can subtract
That would be
from
great.
the
All right, no,
amount
no,
of
but I'm
hours
asking
you
you.
appear.
Yeah.
So you count it back,
Yeah.
just-
Out of all the condos we have, is it likely that they're like,
Yeah.
pretty good?
No, that's good.
Or what if, or let me be,
We're-
If you
seller-
send
let me
me-
be the seller, you be the
February,
agent for a
it's
second.
gonna be
Okay.
about 6
All right.
days.
I'm excited to
Through a
move,
lot of
I have to be honest with you.
Got it.
Every time on the
You know,
market,
I know
this area is
it's
about
all
100
under,
days. Buyers are gonna look at the same data, and they're gonna see that your neighbor's house sold for only,
You can either accept it, there's one of three things you can do. You can